Okay, so yesterday we spoke about Steve Yzerman and the whole plan for the Red Wings going into the offseason and the 2020 NHL Draft. That video took a look at a few quotes that Yzerman had in interviews with the media, and we used those quotes to form a narrative as to what exactly the Red Wings are planning to do. Today in this video, we're doing the same thing, but for the Montreal Canadiens. And we're doing it the same way because Marc Bergevin had himself a few interviews with some pretty prominent media people that I wanted to go over here today, because he goes over what is essentially the entire rumor package that we have been talking about, not only on this YouTube channel, but also on outlets like the radio, other places like Twitter and Reddit. These are the rumors that everybody has been kind of speculating the Montreal Canadiens could be thinking about. And Bergevin responds to all of it. Plus, he kind of gives his own perspective as to where the team is trade-wise and what could be set upon the table going forward. So, our two interviews we're taking a look at are firstly, the one that he did with Tony Marinaro on TSN 690. The link in the description is going to be there to click on it. Listen to it for yourself. And we also have this article done on journaldemontreal.com. This is a written interview by Jean-François Chaumont, and the article will be in the description below. So if you want to check out either of these two interviews, you can go ahead and do that. One is an audio radio format. The other is a written article. It's actually kind of funny because they were both published on the same day, or at least the article was published yesterday at lunchtime, and the interview happened yesterday at lunchtime. So we have two big Bergevin interviews right away. The first one we're going to go over is the written article over here. This one goes over the addressing of the rumors that everybody has been talking about. As we noted, it's written by Jean-François Chaumont, so big ups to our friend over here. But the article goes over what exactly Bergevin said on three things. First off, it's Patrik Laine. Second off, it's Taylor Hall. Thirdly, we're talking about other big-name free agents who have the big name, but not really the status attached to the name anymore. And fourthly, it's the entire idea as to what the Canadiens could actually do with the previous three things established. So first off, on Patrik Laine, this is what Marc Bergevin says on the idea of the Canadiens making a trade. Now, the article first goes over what Bergevin said to Pierre LeBrun before on an Athletic article. This is where Bergevin told LeBrun, "I can't speak of a player who belongs to another team." But the Journal de Montréal asked him the question again, and they told him the price to pay to acquire such a player would be huge. Then Bergevin replied with this: "To get a player of this caliber, you have to empty your team. This trade, if we were to do it, would not push our team in the right direction. We would be going sideways or backwards." It's not word for word the way I'm reading it, because this is actually a French article. I translated it to English via the Google machine, so that's kind of why the English is a little bit chunky here. So there we go. Bergevin, for one, says that he is not going to make a trade for Patrik Laine because the price is going to be huge. Secondly, speaking about big prices, we have ourselves another guy who could demand a high price tag. This guy's name is Taylor Hall, the projected best free agent of the 2020 class, and an Arizona Coyotes guy who is probably on his way out. When it comes to Taylor Hall, Marc Bergevin says this: "I need to keep my money for the young prospects of this team, who will need to renew their contracts in the coming years." That's exactly it, he says. This is about the idea of Taylor Hall demanding a price tag that would, quote-unquote from the article, destroy the salary structure of the Habs. Bergevin then goes over what exactly we noted in a few videos ago as well, the idea that the Canadiens want a big forward winger who can score goals. He says there isn't anybody on the free agent market that fulfills that description. So for the Habs, we can safely withdraw this option too. Bergevin then says, though, if they do want to make a trade for any of these big, powerful, scoring forwards, there still needs to be some concerns laid out there. Because, in his own words, he says this: "As you know, a big player who can score and brings a physical presence, there aren't a ton of those in the NHL. To be successful in obtaining them, you have to give up a lot. We're watching this closely. We're ready to make sacrifices for the future. But we do not want to touch our good young players who are already here in Montreal." So, that's interesting. We're ready to make sacrifices for the future, but we don't want to touch the guys who are already on the team. The article says here that because Bergevin laid it out like that, you can remove Kotkaniemi, Suzuki, Romanov, or Cole Caulfield from trade discussions, which is the right thing to do. I think anybody watching the Habs kind of knows that. So, that's a brand new idea over here. The Canadiens being interested to sacrifice the future, but just not touch the guys that are already in Montreal. What does that mean? Well, it means prospects and picks. This is where we go over to Tony Marinaro's little interview that he did with Marc Bergevin. It's 38 minutes long, so it's a very deep listen. I will say, just my own personal opinion here, it's a little bit difficult to listen to, just in my own personal opinion of a guy who took 2 years of radio school learning how to interview people. This didn't really feel like the best interview, in my opinion, just in the way the narrative was flowing, just in the way the questions were being asked, and just in the way the questions were being framed. But, of course, Tony Marinaro doing his job, he's got to do it. Let's go over a few quotes talking about what exactly was said here in this interview. The big one's over here. And this is relating to the previous idea we had in the previous article. Marinaro asks him, are you willing to trade prospects or first-round picks? Are you willing to put together a package to make the Canadiens better today? Bergevin says, yeah. Are you willing to do it next week? Tonight. Then he does say that, so you're close to pulling something off, and then Bergevin says no. So hypothetically, Bergevin is just laying out all the cards here that the goal, the trading plan for this team is to make it better today. Acquire assets that can help your team out, preferably a big scoring forward, and if you need to get rid of some of the prospects you have in your system and or draft picks, c'est la vie. You want to sacrifice the future for the now? Go ahead and do it. Just not touch any of the guys who are already on the team. But some of the guys that are going to be a few years away, it appears that they might be fair game. So right away, this kind of brings up an entirely different discussion because now we have it. We have the confirmation that Bergevin once again is doubling down on the idea of acquiring a big scoring forward, or at the very least, somebody who can help this team out immediately. If you remember that video that I pulled up a few minutes ago in this one, that's the video that we talked about a few other options that the Canadiens could actually go for. Different big quote-unquote scoring wingers that can actually help this team out today. We talked about Brandon Saad, we talked about Anthony Mantha, we talked about Jesse Puljujarvi of all people, a few guys in that video over there. In fact, going back to that TSN interview, here's a little bit of what I was talking about with some of the weirdness that was that interview. Take a look at this. Here's what Marco DeMiro, the hockey expert on Twitter, was saying about this interview. Marinaro was telling Marc Bergevin that your team needs to get bigger. Then Bergevin said, that's why we have you, Tony. You're a big guy. And then there was awkward laughing, followed by a few seconds of silence. Also, Marinaro was asking Bergevin to define his previous trades as wins or losses, which is explained here in a tweet that it's not really all too ethical to do that because essentially, if a GM comes out and says, yep, we won the Pacioretty trade, you're kind of, in a way, slapping George McPhee in the face saying, hey man, we beat you guys in a trade here, haha, you guys lost. And that in itself isn't really all too great. I really do see the point that Marco is making here on Twitter when he talks about it, but the funny part is indeed the comment about saying that Tony's a big guy. That's really weird, to be honest. But that, combined with the article from Le Journal de Montréal, gives ourselves what is pretty much the brand new trading plan. Their goal has not changed, but the means that they would use to achieving that goal appears to involve assets that we kind of knew the Canadiens had a lot of, but we didn't really think now was the time to touch that. The prospects and the picks. We know the Canadiens have a ton of these, but when it comes to guys that are already on the team, you only have a really small selection to choose from. The article initially said Cole Caulfield as well, but you kind of know that Caulfield is not going to go anywhere. In fact, he's not going anywhere even in the NCAA, too. There was an article coming out talking about how it's confirmed he is staying back with the Wisconsin Badgers. So that's our little Cole Caulfield update as well. I guess I would throw that in there just because it's a little bit of extra news that we can also attach at the end of this one, too. So talk to me in the comments what you think about all this stuff here. Bergevin not wanting to go after Laine, not wanting to go after Taylor Hall, sticking around with the young guys that are already in the Canadiens system on the ice, and potentially trading picks and other prospects that are a few years removed from actually making an impact on the team. Talk to me in the comments what you think about all this stuff. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.